What's up, Internet? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to rebuild the front brake master cylinder on the 97 Suzuki GSXR 600, so stick around. So we can actually get this Gixxer out of the garage and down the street, just around the neighborhood, because it's still not registered and no fairings are going to be on it. We just want to ride it. So before we do that, though, we need to get some working brakes. Front brakes are completely frozen, so we've pulled the master cylinder and both the left and right side calipers off the bike. I didn't do that on camera because it's really stupid simple. I'll walk over there and show you the order in which I did things, and then we'll jump right into disassembling the master cylinder and rebuilding that. So as you can see, we've already pulled the calipers, brake lines, and the wheel off of the front of the motorcycle. You don't really need to pull the wheel off, but I pulled the wheel off because it's quite dirty and I want to give it a nice good wash, and it's just easier to do it off the bike. Plus I want to clean the forks, the outer tubes, inner tubes, the whole front of the bike needs to be cleaned. So I was like, yeah, let's just pull the wheel. I didn't do it on camera because it's really quite simple. The first thing that I did was loosened the banjo bolt where the brake lines connect into the caliper on both sides. Then you can pull these two mounting bolts off and you can just let it hang. In this case, we're replacing the brake lines. If you're not replacing the brake lines, normally what I'll do is take some wire and then hang the calipers so that the weight of the calipers aren't stretching or pulling on the brake lines. And I'll just wrap them around something. I'll find something on the bike just to hang the calipers so that they're not hanging with all the weight on the brake lines. But in this case, we're replacing everything, so I just dropped them and let them go. To pull the wheel off, it's really quite simple. You're going to loosen the pinch bolts on the left side as you're facing the bike. Then you can loosen this bolt, actually goes all the way through and threads into a receiver on this side. So you're going to loosen these two pinch bolts. Then you're going to loosen this bolt over here. You don't want to take it all the way out yet. Then you're going to loosen these two pinch bolts. Take something like a rubber mallet, punch it through. You'll see a little bit hanging out on this side, and then you can loosen this the rest of the way. It will then disconnect from the receiver side on this end, and you can just pull them both out. Wheel drops down, good to go. Looks like, so this is the left side, goes through the forks, and it threads into this piece, which is on the right side. So they kind of connect up like this. So you want to loosen it, but you don't want to take it all the way out so that you can hit the rubber mallet on this side and knock this side out so you can actually grab onto it and pull it out of the fork tube. Pretty simple. We've also got the brake reservoir, master cylinder, and lever off the bike, and we're ready to actually pull the master cylinder apart, disassemble it. So this is the line for the reservoir to connect to. Fluid drops in through this. The first thing we're going to do is just pop off this little rubber seal, and then we'll pull that down there. Now there's a circlip inside, and we're going to take our circlip pliers and just yank that guy out. And it's easier than it looks. There it is. So we'll take the circlip, put that next to our rubber seal, and then this kind of just twists out. Sit that there. And then there's also a rubber seal. Just use a little flat tip screwdriver to pull that out. Try always to pay attention to the order in which things come apart, and sometimes things have one side and only go back in one way, but this is was pretty nasty. I've actually already pulled it out and cleaned it, but this is the stuff that was inside. It's almost like the brake fluid kind of, I don't know, jellied up into this solid stuff. We're just going to call it stuff. And when I pulled it out, it just kind of broke apart into different pieces. Initially, it looked like one solid piece, and I thought it was actually part of the assembly. No, just turns out it's just solidified brake fluid. Lovely. Next thing we're going to do is where the lever actually presses against the mechanism that pushes fluid through the system. We're just going to pull, and there's a little bit of fluid behind here. There's a rubber seal. We're just going to pull that off. And then there should be another circlip underneath here. And there is. I don't know if that's going to come through the camera, but there's another circlip in there holding everything in. You know, brake fluid's pretty nasty, and I totally recommend, not only is brake fluid really nasty, but brake cleaner's really nasty, and I would recommend that you wear gloves. I'm not wearing gloves, but as you've seen in some of my other videos, I always say, do as I say, not as I do. All right, it's the next day. Got a little bit of an issue. Let me show you what's going on. I've got the front brake master cylinder in a vise. You might be asking, why the heck am I doing that? So let me take it out of the vise and I'll show you what's going on here. When you take this circlip out, and the circlip sits inside here and it holds the piston from coming out of the master cylinder. Once you take the circlip out, the piston should just come right out of the master cylinder, if not even just fall out. You should be able to pull it out. This guy's stuck, man. It's stuck in there really good. So that's why I had it in the vise. So I've got a bolt going through the brake line side where the banjo bolt threads into the master cylinder, and I'm trying to push this out with the vise. And I'm a little concerned because I was putting quite a bit of force on the vise, more than I would suspect should be necessary. So what I ended up doing was spraying some WD-40 inside the master cylinder here on top of the piston, hoping that it might seep in there and kind of loosen things up. And I just let it sit overnight, and we're about to try and see if we can get this out, get the piston out of the master cylinder 100%. So I'm gonna put it back in the vise and go as far as I can go. Eventually the piston will hit one side of the jaws, and I might be able to put like a socket over the piston area so that the piston can slide out inside the socket, but we'll see what happens. I went to go put this thing, the master cylinder, the front brake master cylinder. I went to go put it back in the vise and try and squeeze the piston out the rest of the way, and I guess the WD-40 did its trick, because it just kind of popped out real nice and easy. I didn't even really need to crank down on the vise at all. But you can see those grooves, and as I turn it around, like right there, you can start to see where all the brake fluid just kind of solidified. It's pretty nasty. I can see why this thing was just stuck to the walls of the master cylinder, and there's still some stuff in here. Eine momenta. I'm just gonna take this pen and see if I can shove. Well, that's too big. Is it? Yeah, it's too big. What am I gonna do here? I need something. This is not long enough. We'll use this little screwdriver. Okay, there's the rest of it. So I think I might be in decent shape in terms of the walls inside the master cylinder where the piston rides and moves back and forth. That might not be that bad. I mean, I don't really see like any scarring, or that was going to be like my big concern, was if the inside of the master cylinder walls are kind of ruined, then I'm kind of screwed and you need to get a new master cylinder, but they don't look too bad. So here's the rest of the piston. There's a spring, and it all just kind of sits inside like that. There's a seal here on the end. There's one, it's kind of hard to see with all the gunk. There's one on this end, and we've got the new spring. We've got new seals for both ends. We're gonna just clean this sucker up and reassemble. See you in a bit. We've got the master cylinder and the piston fairly well clean. Pretty happy with it. Let's take a look real quick. Here's the master cylinder. Not sure how well this will show up on camera, but
Let's see, I'm trying to find an angle where the light's hitting it. It's not too bad. It's pretty clean inside. I'm happy with the way that cleaned up. Here's the piston. It's not too bad. I'm happy, content. I kind of wet sanded it. So I used about 1,000 grit sandpaper, which is a very fine finishing sandpaper. And then I put a little WD-40, just a little bit. I mean, you don't really need a whole lot. And I just wet sanded it with the 1,000 grit sandpaper and the WD-40, and came out pretty good. That worked well. Here are the new parts. This is the seal that goes on the end of the piston, and that's the side that the lever actually presses against. Then we've got a new circlip, new spring. One thing that's a little bit concerning is here's the old parts that were thrown away. These are not the same size. So I actually went back and checked my order, made sure I had the right motorcycle selected, because you know, the online ordering systems are pretty fancy nowadays. You put in year, make, model, and they'll tell you if this part fits that bike. So I went back, checked my order, and I had the right bike selected. Says it's supposed to fit the 97 Suzuki GSXR. It's supposed to fit the 97 Suzuki GSXR 600. So we're gonna assemble with the new parts and go with it and see what happens. You know, you have issues when you're trying to make a cinematic B-roll segment of a brake lever. Yeah. Well, that's all she wrote, folks. As you can see from the sexy B-roll cinematic footage. Everything's reinstalled on the bike. Unfortunately, I have not yet received my brake lines, and we still got to rebuild the calipers. So hopefully this helps somebody. The reality is a lot of these master cylinders are all going to be similar. So, you know, don't think that it's going to be that much different for that ZX10, for example, or even my motocross bike. They're all basically about the same. The rear, if you look at the rebuild kit, I guess I didn't show it to you. The rebuild kit for the rear is identical to the front. It's got an extra circlip in it, and the seals are different sizes, but it's the same seals, just different sizes. I think I just said that twice. Next video will be, hopefully I don't have to rebuild them, disassemble the calipers, clean them up. And then the next video after that will be first ride in 15 years. Woo, I'm excited for that. And then the next video after that will be rebuilding the rear brake cylinder, new brake line, and caliper. And maybe I'll explain how I did this a long time ago. Should be fun. Love that Kawasaki, that ZX10 is. Well, thanks for watching, and appreciate the likes, the subs, and the comments, and just all the feedback in general, all the interaction. The interaction is the coolest part. I created a Patreon page. I'm pretty pumped on this. It's exciting. I've never used it before, brand new to Patreon. And first order of business is I'm going to be giving away my Hero 2 camera. That's the camera I use for the rear facing shots on the ZX10. I also do rear facing shots. It sits on top of my motocross helmet. I looked up like you guys can see that. Yeah, so I use it for all the rear facing views on the motocross track and on the ZX10. We're going to give it away. And you know, it's still a 100% fully functional camera. It has an extra battery. It comes with a case. And I'm not making this up, I shit you not. It is my most reliable camera. I've got a Hero 5 Session, I've got the Hero 8, and I've got the Hero Max 360. So far, the Hero 2 it's just, I like to call it old reliable. It's the one camera that I know will record shit, won't have audio issues, and so on and so forth. Yeah, lots of plans for the Patreon page. So, oh yeah, I almost forgot. We're gonna let the patrons pick the color of the Gixxer. White, blue, whatever.
I don't care. I've been tossing around lots of different ideas. The only one that really kind of I like is orange, but I'm really tired of thinking about it, so I'm just going to offload that burden to the patrons, and patrons will pick the color. I'm going to wrap it, not because if you pick a crappy color that I don't like, I can just take the wrap off and rewrap it in a different color. I'm going to wrap it because I really liked wrapping the ZX10, and I need another project to wrap. So the Gixxer is the natural selection. And you know, it's a lot of work to wrap, at least for me. That was the first bike I wrapped, and it took a long time. So I'll be able to do the Gixxer faster because I've got experience now, and I think it'll probably end up coming out better than the ZX10. But it still is a fair bit of effort, and I lost my pride a long time ago. So if you guys pick pink, I will roll that bike down the street in pink. I don't care. So I just thought it'd be something fun and interactive to do. So yeah, that's going to be coming out on the Patreon page. So go take a look. Yeah, that's it, man. Keep the rubber side down, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.